Hey, what's up, everyone? So, today we're going to be covering Ascendant Lord in the fifth house and what happens when your Ascendant Lord comes into the fifth house in your horoscope. Well, first of all, Ascendant Lord is your very first house Lord, meaning that when you were born, the sign that was rising on the eastern horizon, that particular sign becomes the first house for you. So, whatever sign that is your ascendant, and that certain ascendant is ruled by a certain planet. So, that planet comes into the fifth house. Well, it's literally laughable when I read some of these very mundane, basic classical text that says that ascendant lord in the fifth house can stop pregnancy, the person will be stupid, the person will not have any progress in life, and then the second paragraph will tell you the person will be honorable, the person will be intelligent. It's like, and then you find these people on Facebook who create these websites to go against astrology, and you know what? I don't blame them, because when you hear this information and you test it on yourself, and you're like, I'm a PhD, how come it didn't stop me? And then they lose interest, and that's just the most stupidest way of describing house to house lordship. Because first of all, what is the fifth house? Fifth house is the second house to your fourth house. Second house to any house is a wealth of that house. Okay, remember that. So for your first house, your life, your wealth is the second house. So for fourth house, fifth house becomes the wealth house, and fourth house is the house of your inner mind, your inner peace of mind. Okay, and so the fifth house becomes the higher self of that. It becomes the gain of the fourth house, meaning that it is gain of your intellect, your inner intellect. It develops you even more. So fourth house is the house of your like basic education before college, and then fifth house becomes the college education. So it's the higher elevated mind. It's the gain of your peace of mind, and the gain of your peace of mind comes through what? More information, more knowledge. The more you know, the more you will be able to deal with circumstances. If somebody never showed you fire and you saw fire, you'll run away. But if somebody gave you the knowledge that, hey, fire is something that can make food for you and make you a food for someone else, because it can burn the hell out of you, you'll know that. You'll become more smart. So fifth house is intellect. Fifth house is also known as your previous house or a previous life fruits. This is why it's called Purva Punya Bhava, meaning that this house really tells if you had created sin in your past life or you did something good in your past life. Okay, fifth house is a higher self of the third house. So if you watched my Bhavad Bhavam video, it is third from the third house, meaning that it's a higher self of your performing arts. It's a higher self of media and announcing, because it comes from inside. But this is why fifth house is known as a house of passion, because it is a higher self of your creativity. Some people are creative, but they don't really pursue it. But when fifth house is activated, when let's say third house comes into the fifth house, or your ascendant comes into the fifth house, it energizes your inner passion for art, performing arts, creativity, any kind of stage performance. So fifth house represents a higher self of the third house. Fifth house also represents academics, like college education, your undergrad. Fifth house represents creativity. So what else is creativity? Creativity is romance and love. So when you're in love and romance, you become creative. How can I impress my other half today? How can I impress him today? How can I impress her today? So what happens? Your mind becomes creative. Your mind starts to think of ways to, progress your relationship to something much higher. Okay. Fifth house is a house of children, because fifth house is a house of creativity. And children are made through being creative. Because first you kind of swindled your other half. You were creative enough to make them fall in love with you, and then you made it with them and you created children. And this is why fifth house, since it's a house of fun and creativity, it's a house of sports. And sports can be anything from tennis to gambling to, playing chess. Any kind of activity where you have fun becomes the fifth house. Like art, when you draw, you have fun, becomes a fifth house. When you have sex, it's fun. That's the fifth house. Okay, so that's what fifth house really is. Fifth house is a house of scriptures, as in like learning spiritual scriptures, tantric scriptures of past life. You bring the education of past life into the fifth house. So that's how you can truly see if somebody really expresses their true intellect or not. Okay, so that's what fifth house is. And as I told you before, ascendant is your physical body, is a part of your personality. It represents your ego. It represents the shape and look of your physical self. It controls your entire life. And obviously it's part of your personality because your personality is really formed by sun and moon and the ascendant together, because you're multidimensional. You're not just a Scorpio all the time. You might act as an Aries, you might act as a Aquarius at certain times. So ascendant becomes, ascendant shows your health, how good or bad your health is, how well you will be in your life physically and mentally is also seen by the ascendant, because ascendant is the head. So then if ascendant goes into the fifth house, what happens? So when your ascendant lord goes into the fifth house, it shows that your entire life being is going to be, majority will concern the fifth house. It'll concern academic side of your life. It will concern the creative side of your life. It will concern the political side of your life. And it will concern the fun side of your life. But depending upon who your ascendant is, that particular planet will show you what direction you will go into. Like a basic definition of ascendant in the fifth house lord will say, oh, you'll academically will be very great. You will love to be, in the umbrella of school and university and just learning and gaining knowledge. When you look at your fifth house, you're like, I hate school. I don't like school. Well, that depends what planet is going in there. Is it a tamasic planet? Is it a rajasic planet? Is it a sattvic planet? Because each house has a certain sign in it, just like your ascendant. And depending upon what your ascendant is, that's what's going to rule your fifth house, because you will count 5 places from that actual ascendant. So if you're Aries ascendant, Leo becomes your fifth house. If you're Gemini ascendant, Libra becomes your fifth house. So then that fifth house gets molded with that energy of that sign. So you can't just have this mundane definition of the ascendant in the fifth house. You'll always be involved in academics and art. No, you may not like art. You may not be involved in art, but you may be involved in academics of things. So it all depends on not only, and here's another secret, the ultimate result of ascendant in the fifth lord or any house doesn't just depend on its placement, but also what planet it is, what sign it is, and where is the lord of that sign and the karaka of that sign are placed. That will show exactly where your life passion is going to be. If your Mars is in the fifth house, it shows that your entire life force can go into being competitive in the arts, the media, and in the sports field. It can show anytime you go into any kind of a fifth house thing, even if it's academics, you are going to, the life is going to say, I'm going to give you competition. You're going to sit in exams that it's going to give you competition. You're going to have to fight your way to do whatever you want to do, because Mars is a soldier. Mars likes to fight. Mars has his natural instinct to always pick up a sword and start fighting. So in the fifth house, not only as an ascendant lord is going to bring you competition in the arts, in the academics, and in political field or even sports field, but is going to make you go into power struggle with those things. You will butt head with your, not, how do I say this, like your co-students in college. You're going to compete with people you play with. You're going to be very competitive when you play any kind of sports. When you gamble, you're going to fight till death. When you go for your academics, you are going to be the one up at night, trying to beat that other person in the examination. But the thing is, Mars is not about academics. Mars is more of a soldier. Mars is an engineer in nowadays, but Mars needs support of other planets to be doing good academically. If Mercury is with it, if Jupiter's aspecting it, or Mercury aspects Mars, that will show that there's energy with academics. Otherwise, it can show a really good gambler, really good actor, a really good sportsman. If Venus is your ascendant, goes into the fifth house, then again, that depends on what that fifth house is. Because if your ascendant lord is Taurus, okay, then your fifth house is going to be what? Virgo. Venus is debilitated in Virgo. So what happens is this person will always fail in romance early on in life. They'll have very dramatic experiences in romance and love. The relationship with teachers, relationship with children, relationship with people in your team, whatever sports you play, will not be so good because of the fact you will not look at everything as fun. You will look at everything as dedicated work that requires hard work and focus, and you will pinpoint every flaw in your life and lives of your children. So that will make you a bad parent, especially if Venus is in between 5 and 14 degrees. That's where you'll really be critical of your children. You'll be critical of your other half. Anytime you get into romantic relationships, after a little while, you're going to start nitpicking them, because of the fact Venus is debilitated in Virgo, especially in those degrees that I told you. So that's where and your focus in studies will be dramatically be reduced because of the fact you are too focused into one thing. You are too focused into nitpicking all the flaws, including yourself, because it's your ascendant lord. It is your life force. It represents your physical body. You will be always be draining yourself to think that you're not worth it. Like Venus is what you value your worth because of the fact it's a controller of your original second house, Taurus. So it brings that value karkaness into the fifth house. And then it shows that, okay, I'm not valuable. I cannot achieve anything. I am not good at this. See all my flaws. See, my kids cannot achieve anything either because look at all these flaws here. So you start nitpicking things. Saturn. I'll give an example of Saturn. So Saturn is your ascendant lord, comes into the fifth house. What is Saturn? Saturn is responsibility. Saturn is hard work, structure, having organization skills, delay. Saturn makes you frustrated into the things that you do in life, especially in this time period. So what will Saturn do? Saturn will bring such experiences in your academic life that you will feel burden and responsibility through academics. You will run away from academics. You will feel like, oh my God, there's so much burden on me to pass this exam. There is so much burden on me to study all these subjects, and you will find yourself away from it. But where Saturn can excel is when you are dedicated towards the fun things of life. You see, Saturn brings dedication, and it brings organization into whatever you do. So if Saturn is well placed according to what ascendant it is, because Capricorn and Aquarius rules Saturn. So if Saturn is placed in the fifth house, and when it comes to like performing arts, when it comes to sports, you're going to be focused and dedicated, because Saturn is not intelligence. Intelligence is Jupiter and Mercury. Saturn is physical work. Saturn is repetitive work. Saturn is routine jobs. Saturn is status and government. So you will do very well when it comes to politics and sports, because you'll be dedicated and focused. Okay, I'm using my body to do something. I'm using my physical nets. If you're acting is also using your physical self in front of the camera. So you'll be focused and dedicated. You'll be a very serious actor, like Robert De Niro or Al Pacino, or like Amitabh Bachchan. Very, like just focused. And when he does something, everything becomes serious. When you're a sportsman, you don't care about the fun side of sport. You become serious of winning. I need to win. But when it comes to academics, when it comes to using your intelligence, Saturn fails, because Saturn is not using this. Saturn is using your physical body. You're using your legs. But if Mercury is sitting with it, if Jupiter aspects Saturn, that's when it'll make you a brilliant student, because not only you are focused and dedicated and structured, but that structure is receiving an aspect or conjunction of these intellects called Jupiter and Mercury. That's where you'll be very calculative. You can be a law student, you can be a lawyer, you can be a brilliant politician. If you are a teacher and you go into academics, you will use academics as a source of your career by teaching people. So you see how looking at different ascendant lords becomes a totally different experience. So if Sun as the ascendant lord goes into the fifth house, that means it's in the sign of Sagittarius. Sun is a sattvic planet, a spiritual planet. Sun represents your ego, your self-esteem, it's a karka of your personality. In the fifth house, sun brightens everything, okay? But sun is a hot planet, so sun burns also. And before we even do that, let me go back to Saturn again. Saturn is what? A delayer of things. So what happens is with people with Saturn in the fifth house also have delay in having children. Pregnancy is delayed. It's never denied with Saturn, it's delayed. So you'll have children in your late 20s or mid 30s. And it also makes your romantic life cold, meaning that if you get into romances, they'll be very boring and cold, or you yourself will be so much into other things that your romantic life will be very structured and very much about discipline, and the other person wants to have fun, but you are putting discipline on your romantic life, and so the romantic life doesn't work. Okay, so that's something I just remembered and wanted to add that. But if you're talking about the sun then makes you a very proud and very strong personality, because sun is in the fire sign. So two double whammies happen in the fifth house. So academically, you will be very confident about achieving your goals. When it comes to acting, you will exuberate that sensual acting talent that people want to see. But mainly, this is very good for spiritual progress. But here's the thing: sun burns wherever he sits. So yeah, there will be delay and hardship in gaining, your pregnancy of children, but you will gain them. I've seen many people who gain them, because you not only look at the fifth house in the D1 chart, you also look at this D7 chart, Saptamesh chart, to see how Jupiter and Saturn are doing in your Saptamesh chart. Because if Jupiter aspects Sun, then hey, Jupiter is giving that positive light on the Sun, but Sun does burn the things; it becomes heated. So what happens is you'll get into egoistic battles with your teachers in your college and your undergrad degree. You'll have a lot of ego about what you know versus what others know. You take Moon, Cancer ascendant. Moon goes into the fifth house. Moon, and if it's in the early degrees, it can be debilitated. It'll be known as a debilitated moon. But Moon is really just makes you mind more intense. Your mind more into secretive occultic things. So when your entire life is in the fifth house in the sign of Scorpio, you'll be attracted to scriptures. You'll be attracted to the dark side of the fifth house. If you go into the academics, you will probably want to learn about the scientific things, like what's out there or what's down below. As above, so below. You would want to be either a marine scientist, or you would probably want to be an astronomer. You would want to investigate things in your life, in your academic life, where you can be an investigative journalist. You can, if you go into any subject, even mathematics or science, you will dive into the deepest part of that subject. Moon is also your mother, and it can show there's a very transformative relationship with the mother. If Moon is in the very early degrees, like 0 to 6 degrees, it can represent a lot of traumatic instances with your mother, where your peace of mind of the fourth house and your fifth house of intellect were really shattered by the mother. But now your ascendant lord is in the fifth house, but that doesn't mean that you're going to be in academics. Moon is a very quick moving planet. Moon is here one day and then he's here the other day. It's like Mercury. So Moon academically may not do very well. Moon will be more about creative things, will be a very dramatic and artistic actor, because Moon is your feelings, your intuition, your mind. Your mind will dive into the creative side of life more than academics. But then again, it can change if Jupiter or Mercury is aspecting the fifth house. If Mercury is in the ninth house, Jupiter is in the ninth house, and you're running through the major period of Jupiter, you will do good in your academic life. But your intelligence is all about diving deep into things, and then, getting the roots of those things and getting them out. So that's what becomes of Moon. Mercury can make you a mathematician, can make you intellectual, can make you a mimicker, because mimicking is the art of acting. It's part of the acting. So great actor, writers, script writers, astrologers, great teachers and mathematicians comes out of the fifth house, Mercury. Great gamblers, stock market, stockbrokers are seen from this. When these people gamble, they have the intellect to win in gambling, to win in stock market, in sports betting, martial art. They do very well. Mercury in the fifth house, because Mercury is working with your hands, you know. And if Mars is sitting there, it can make you a martial artist, it can make you an engineer, it can make you a computer programmer. Because see, here's the thing about career. It's not simple anymore. There are literally thousands of different careers which are hard to pinpoint. But you can, as an astrologer, you can direct your mind towards a certain aspect. So, okay, Mercury and Mars. Mars is this, Mercury is this. And you can say, well, you'll be doing things related to this, this, and this. And your client will say, yeah, I'm kind of doing this and this. So now you can do that. You know, you cannot just pinpoint it. Oh, you're doing data development in your IT field. You know, that's going too much into details. And I don't think Parashara knew that there were going to be all these different careers in 2013, you know. But this is how you would judge, you know. Jupiter, you know, Jupiter is what? Jupiter is the significator of children, wealth. It represents intellect. It represents philosophy. It represents, you know, law. It represents higher learning. So when Jupiter automatically, as a sun and Lord, goes into the fifth house, this person whole entire life will be dedicated to the academics, will be dedicated to the spiritual side of life, will be dedicated to, you know, absorbing everything of the fifth house. Now, if it's a Sagittarius, then that means Aries is ruling the fifth house. That can be more of a sports athlete. That can represent more of a study of engineering. It represents study of body, the anatomy of the body, meaning that medical studies. So depending upon what ascendant it is, which I will go later on in much more detail of what each planet in each house does and what sign and nakshatra, but Jupiter will increase your intellect, you know. And fifth house is, again, it's a house of that Purva Punya Bhava, and Jupiter in the fifth house, along with any benefic or sattvic planet, shows that you did very well in your fifth life to have this kind of blessed life. But obviously, you know, you have to look at the dispositor of the fifth house and aspects on the fifth house, because if Jupiter receives the aspect of Rahu Ketu, is in the axis of Rahu Ketu, and then Saturn Mars aspects it, oh man, that's going to be a lot of stress, responsibility, and burden on you regarding the fifth house things. But also you have to look at the dispositor. If the foundation of your ascendant Lord is weak in the fifth house, which is a sign Lord that it's placed in, then it'll be a very turbulent thing. So you have to always judge not only the sign that the ascendant Lord is placed in, but the dispositor of that sign. Is that well placed or not? Is that debilitated? Because then the whole foundation will be weak and you will not be able to show your exalted planet qualities. So guys, this was my analysis of Ascendant Lord in the fifth house. If you're new to my channel, subscribe below. And if you want to know where your Ascendant Lord is placed, for that, check out the links below. Check out my book there, Astrology at the Speed of Light and Conjunctions at the Speed of Light. And when you get these books, I will send you the link to look at your own chart. Just make sure you follow the directions below. Otherwise, we'll see you later. Bye-bye.